Hello, you're welcome to What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. We'll bring you the top stories for this week. In a bit, I'll let you know what the stories are and also my guest for today. Stay with us. So about 5 issues caught the attention of most media houses this week. The first to do with the announcement that Neoplan company was likely to be shut down. Actually, they gave a day, 31st January, which is Friday, tomorrow. But in the end, the government stepped in and started talks with the company and has told them to hold on with that. Another issue that caught everybody's attention was the coronavirus. As we speak, has moved to over 4 countries. Japan, the United States, and some other countries have detected that virus in their country. Another issue that caught a lot of people's attention this week had to do with the ambulance distribution. Now, early this week, the much-awaited ambulances were distributed or commissioned in a ceremony. Some of them have arrived in regions across the country. We'll let you know which regions have and which regions still have the ambulances en route to those places. And also on Thursday, there was the IPAC meeting, a meeting which the main agenda was to look at how to get parties for or against the new register to find an amicable solution. So these issues caught the attention of most media houses. I'll be introducing my guests in a bit and we'll look at those issues as they panned out. But before that, let me give you into detail how those stories were captured by the various media outlets. So let's start with the issue to do with the Neoplan company announcing that it may shut down on the 31st of January, and start with Citi Newsroom and see how they captured that story. So one of the angles they took was Akufo-Addo yet to receive Neoplan's distress call petition. This is Eugene Iron, the communications guy at the Jubilee House. Also, Daily Graphic captured it this way. They actually broke that story. They say Neoplan shutdown aborted, government intervenes. The Chronicle says intended closure of Neoplan Ghana Limited creates fear and panic among workers. Daily Graphic, again, a follow-up, or the original story to that developing story was Neoplan Ghana Limited shuts down January 31st. We move on to the coronavirus outbreak and see how the local media outlets captured that story. So we go with Citi Newsroom first. It says Ridge and Tema General Hospitals designated as coronavirus case management centers. Ghanaian Times says government sets up National Coordinating Technical Committee to respond to coronavirus. Let's go back to Citi Newsroom because it says MPs urge government to prevent outbreak of coronavirus in Ghana. We move to the new Crusading Guide, says coronavirus, no Ghanaian affected, Foreign Affairs Ministry. Let's go to Citi Newsroom again. It has another angle to that story. It says coronavirus, GOTA advises members to postpone travels to China. We still stay with Citi Newsroom. It says coronavirus, Ghanaian students in Wuhan given about 8,000 cedis for food supplies. And then the final says Ministry of Health designates 17 hospitals as coronavirus centers. Let's go to the ambulance distribution. A lot of pomp and pageantry around that early this week. Citi Newsroom says Volta Regional Minister justifies recommissioning of new ambulances. The Chronicle says Akufo-Addo keep proper maintenance of ambulances. That's to do with his speech when they were commissioned. Now, Daily Guy says Nana rolls out 37 ambulances, new ambulances. The Daily Statesman, MPP sets another record as President commissions over 300 ambulances. Ghanaian Times says big boost for healthcare service as President distributes 307 ambulances to 275 constituencies tomorrow. The Finder, over 300 ambulances staff to be deployed tomorrow. And then the Daily Graphic says President commissions 307 ambulances. Distribution starts immediately. Let's end with a new voters register. Citi Newsroom, IPAC meeting on new register controversy ends in stalemate. This happened on Thursday in the early evening. On Citi Newsroom, political parties opposing new register to march to EC headquarters on February 4th. Now, the Ghanaian Times says Nooks urges political parties EC to dialogue over compilation of voters register. The Daily Statesman, students unite behind Electoral Commission, urge parties to let it do its work. The new crusading guide, assert your independence, Nooks urges EC over new register. And finally, the Finder says Chief Imam's spokesman backs EC on new voters register. So let me introduce my guests for today's edition. And I have with me Bernard Avle. He's a host of the Breakfast Show. He's also the general manager for Citi TV and Citi FM. Bernard, welcome to all the papers.
Thank you, Vivian.
Right. I also have Selorm Adonoo. He's the head of features and articles here at Citi FM and Citi TV. And also a lawyer. Selorm, welcome to all the papers are saying.
Thank you, Vivian.
Let me say you can join the conversation. You can send us a message on 055-058-5832, or you can send us a message via Twitter or Facebook. And we're live on DSTV channel 363 and also GoTV 182. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
It's been an interesting week. Quite a number of developing stories we've seen. I want us to start with the Neoplan company, because this is a serious issue, and if not dealt with properly, it has quite some negative impact on employment, the economy and all that. So, Bernard, I know you have studied this company a lot. If for those who don't really know about the history of this company, when it came in the 70s and when it actually started production, or what it's really about, if you can run us quickly, then we'll start going into it proper.
Well, I mean, thank you for having me. I feel the Neoplan story is really, in a sense, a story of Ghana, right? It's a story of where we are, because, you know, last week they did the 1 week celebration of the death of Okumkom, who is the former mayor of Kumasi.
Yes.
Okay, Anakwesi Ajiman. Now, around the time that he became mayor of Kumasi in the mid-70s, Echampong was head of state, Ignatius Kutu Echampong. So Okumkom dies at 85, and everybody goes to Kumasi to do his 1 week. There will be a big funeral for him. He's the longest-serving mayor in this country, in our records. He served under Achampong, Ekufu, Liman, Rawlings. Within the same period, in the mid-70s, through a partnership between Ghana and Germany, we set up this company that would assemble buses that would help our developing transport sector. It would build buses for schools and to help move people from the major cities, Accra to Kumasi and other places. So if the graphic hadn't done the story this week, Friday, which is those who are watching this in the afternoon, that's today, or those who are watching this on a Thursday, tomorrow, would have been the last day of Neoplan, a week after Okumkom's death, right? So it's a story of failed government policy. It's a story of the kind of politics we run, where governments now don't prioritize industrialization. We have seen decades of what I call deindustrialization. Companies that were set up to build things, not just because, you see, a lot of people feel factories are created just to supply things. Boachi Mattress, Apino Soap, Neoplan. The purpose of a factory is not just to give to make a cheaper mattress than what you would buy. In making a product, there's pride in it. Okay. People are acquiring skills. It's linked to other industries. You are using raw material that you produce. So I'll analyze the thing properly. I'm just saying that had the Daily Graphic not done that story, and had media houses like ours not followed up on it and made noise about it, I doubt it if Mr. Samabuati would have come to announce that he's having a meeting with them and therefore they're no longer closing down. Because the government owns 55% of the company. Yeah, sure. They know the state of the company. Yeah. These people have written letters to the Ministry of Trade. And what is mind-boggling is here is a country that says we are doing one district, one factory. All right. Now, the linkages that a bus assembling plant like Neoplan has with a lot of our stated policies, too glaring and too obvious. All right. So, for me, the kind of politics we run prioritizes short-term over long-term. Somehow, the economic decisions of governments prioritizing creating markets for foreign companies rather than our markets. Yeah. De-emphasizes local production and really is focused on just procurement. Right? This is where we are. And if you want me to go into the details, here we are with a country that has a metro mass bus system. Right? Now, you have a company that assembles buses. You would think that if they need to buy 400 buses, even if you give them 25% of the contract to supply 100 buses, you can buy the rest of the 300. As I'm speaking to you, STC and MMT are negotiating to buy buses. In the previous administration as well, they were supposed to buy 80 buses for a bus rapid transit system. Miraculously, they bought 245. We are told by the current mayor of Accra, because he's the board chairman of the company that runs this bus system, Ayalolo Bus, that instead of paying $80,000 per bus, we pay $265,000 per bus. Yet, this government, Akufo-Addo government, Mahama government, Mills government, did not see any wisdom in giving Neoplan even a contract to buy 100 buses.
President Kufuor
in 2002 gave them a contract. So, what we are seeing is, repeated actions of government show that we are not interested in industrialization. We are not interested in job creation. We are really interested in procurement and getting votes. So, if we can make fanfare about what we've done for the people, and we can make as much money for private people as we can, it doesn't matter whether the money goes to Germany or Iran. Once we get our money, we are happy. And I feel it's really sad. And somebody said something this week that if Ghana's democracy were working, the constituencies in which Neoplan were based, their MPs would give government a hard time. Yeah. But we haven't even heard from MPs in those vicinities. The MP we heard from is Akwame Agboja from Adaklu. So for me, Neoplan is a sad tale of where the country's politics has led it to. Okay. It gives opportunity for us to rethink what we are doing. We can elaborate further later.
So let's bring in Selorm, your initial comments.
Yes,
on this.
the Neoplan company, once upon a time a very viable company, which did a lot of things, so popular, in the mid-70s, 80s, to the extent that, now when you're going to Achimota or when you're going towards Amasaman, there's a whole place now called Neoplan. And the same thing for Kumasi as well. It showed you how influential they were in those days and how powerful or important they were and the kind of how they affected the economics of the areas or the country generally. So to hear all of a sudden that Neoplan was going to close down and, also hearing that it's been something which was always coming was very disappointing to say the least. I don't think that we should actually be having the discussion of the closure of the Neoplan company in an era like this, an era of 1D, 1F, in an era where we've been told that the number one priority of government is to industrialize and all the things we say about industrialization. And the sad thing, we are told that they applied for the 1D, 1F, but nothing came out of it.
Exactly the point. And it's so painful to realize that indeed that happened. And even, taking from what Eugene Ahin, the director of communications at the presidency, said, this guy said he wrote to the presidency a while back, and he only comes to say that the letter has not reached the presidency. So it tells you
what the focus or the priority of the people managing the president's diary or the people around the president, it tells you how they think and what they see or consider as important. And you see, I go back to the point I keep making, that it is this kind of attitude is as a result of our political or the kind of political culture we've built for ourselves. So Neoplan, a lot of people did not even know Neoplan was struggling. So if the government had invested a lot of money in Neoplan, nobody was going to give the government credit. So the government was not going to directly, benefit, indirect benefits a lot. But they were not going to be praised for doing anything. They would rather want to build something new. So you build a new factory, the president or a minister goes there to commission or open it. There's fanfare, there's talk about it, papers carry it, political communicators have something to talk about. It means our government is working, 1D, 1F is happening. It is the political culture we've built for ourselves, so where people want to take credit for the listing.
Over 55% shares in there. And the company even offered to buy them out. They still stayed in. And
the company even paid for the shares.
And even paid $175,000.
The shares were not given to them.
Yes.
And I just cannot understand, because you're not running the thing properly. The people have tried to use other means, not to even get cash from you, as it were, just for you to give them business to do. Nothing was coming. Now they come to you to negotiate that they wanted to buy some of the shares so that they can have bigger control over the company to run the company. You take the money, you don't give them the shares. It's been almost 4 years since that happened, and it beats my mind. Now we have what we call the SIGA, Asamoah Boateng's organization or entity. Now this is the organization or the entity supposed to be coordinating all state-owned enterprises and enterprises where the state has interests. So the question is, when somebody takes over an organization like that, what assessment does the person do of all the entities under that particular organization? One would expect that this should be one of the first things that should be done. And there are many other institutions, I guess, in the same position as Neoplan. Our talk about industrialization, etc., will not be taken seriously if we don't see this thing through. Okay. Now, fortunately, there's some glimmer of hope. All of a sudden, we've heard that some calls have been made and then some discussions are underway. We cannot continue solving problems like this. This is a knee-jerk solution to it. This is firefighting, but we cannot grow this economy using this approach. We need long-term thinking and then long-term strategic thinking, I should say.
I am not optimistic that this so-called intervention will yield any result.
Why?
Because I've already told you that MMT, Metro Mass Transit Company, which had its initial buses supplied by Neoplan, is in the process of procuring buses with STC.
So really, who will feed Neoplan?
So they are going to buy. They are not interested in Neoplan supplying buses for any company. That's number one. Number two, let me read a story for you on citinewsroom.com. VW Nissan Sinotrack assembly plans to become operational in 2019. Nanado. Let me just read the first two paragraphs. The President Akufo-Addo says 3 vehicle assembly plants for which MOUs have been signed between government and 3 global car giants will become operational in 2019. What's today's date?
2020.
30th January 2020.
Speaking at the 7th Association of Ghana Industries Awards on 9 December 2017, the president said, quote, "We anticipate also that the assembly plants to be established by the 3 global car manufacturing giants, Volkswagen, that's from Germany, Nissan from Japan, and Sinotrack will become operational in 2019. The president stressed that, quote, "A comprehensive automotive industry policy will be launched to provide clear and consistent guidelines for the sector." This is 2017. Eugene is telling us that the letter has come to the presidency, hasn't reached the president. Do you even need a letter to get to the president? You are doing a clear and consistent policy on automotive. You have a vehicle assembly plant
your local one
here. The company is supposed to collapse because they are not getting government business. Now, if you haven't done if you haven't included if you've done a policy, is Neoplan in a policy, why does the president need a letter to reach him to intervene?
In a business, he has interest, or his government has
You
interest,
get
or
me?
the state has
So
interest.
we are just.
Well, perhaps
The policy is not to support. We were in this country, Mahama's time, Kumasi Shoe Factory. The president ordered that the military and the police should buy shoes from there. They didn't buy. He didn't do anything to them.
That's right.
The procurement economy is reigning. And presidents can make declarations, we'll clap for them. But if you don't change policy to back what you say, this is what will happen. So I don't believe that they will save Neoplan. And the irony is that VW is from Germany. And Neoplan was started by Germans. Apart from that, we have, if you want to save Neoplan at all, they have polytechnics. Turn it into a training facility. Apprentice. We don't even have people who have apprenticeship. People import accident cars into Ghana and they need body works. At least even if you manufacture a bus, convert it into a place where we can do body works for cars, simple Ayundu. And now they have to write to 1D1 and now you are telling me that letter is getting to reach a president.
He has not seen the letter.
Charlie, I think that we are just not serious with the thing. And this is like because the media is important, you see. Because the media is shouting about it, now they want to do some window dressing. And the previous government didn't do anything. Apart from Kufo. You see, so this one, the politics around it is not that much because, you see, it's not about
everybody's
votes.
Guilty.
And only 100 people are going home.
Yes.
You see the way we are working. You let something come up and see how the opposition will jump on it.
And the shares were bought in the other regime, so nobody's talking about it.
It's sad.
So my thinking is,
it's sad.
Political will cure this.
But do we have it?
Yeah, so that is why we need to garner political will. I don't know from where. I don't know what must happen for that to happen. We need to garner political will to make this happen. So we are told that if the company is operating at optimum levels, it will employ like 800 people. So you can imagine that we have a number of engineering students in polytechnics or now technical universities, tech, etc., in mechanical engineering. Even if you wouldn't use that place, I mean, it's a good place for them to start. They will be happy to be part of something they are building themselves.
The president said, we all know that the world's leading economies were developed through industrialization and value-added activities. And the greatest aspiration any of us could hope for is the realization of the investment in the collective vision of Ghana. So we say nice things.
Yeah, I mean,
we
that's
don't
the
back
rhetoric.
it up with policy. So I'm not even the one to advise them. They know what to do.
They know what to do. They are refusing to do. So we'll see in the coming days and weeks what happens to those discussions they're having. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the coronavirus. Has been declared a global health emergency just a few hours ago. We'll look at how Ghana is ready and whether we are reacting in the right way with this virus. Stay with us. Welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. I'm here with Bernard Avle and Selorm Adonoo. Now we'll move to two issues to do with health. Distribution of the ambulances early this week and also to do with the coronavirus. An outbreak which has been declared a health emergency by the WHO. So guys, let's start with the ambulance. Still a lot of issues around it. Your hometowns, have they gotten to your constituencies for the two of you?
We are told that in certain places they have to do ceremonies to...
Recommissioning.
Recommissioning.
I really don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Because I feel, look, it's also a public health issue. Mm-hmm. If you are going to have an intervention where you have one ambulance in every district, in our country, information flow may be problematic. So if, for example, in a Volta region, they decide that they will make some noise about the fact that ambulances have arrived, so people can use that to learn about the new system.
Decentralized.
I don't think there's much of a problem there. All right. I feel those of us who are complaining about this launch are. That's not the main issue.
Yeah.
The main issue is whether the system they've set up is going to save lives.
Yeah.
But we are majoring on that too much. How long did the launch ceremony take? I mean, people even said, I have listeners who said we should boycott the launch because it's a waste of taxpayers' money. And I said, look. It's a public health intervention to bring ambulances. You may like the ambulances. You may think that it's not the most important thing to do. You may think, well, we should have finished abandoned projects before. These are all legitimate points. But I feel that centering the discussion on the launch misses the point. Because if you are sending an ambulance to Bumpurugu Yonyo at least you need to let committee members know that there's an ambulance, this is how you're going to access it. If a 1 hour launch will help that happen, I don't have a problem with it. Now, I think the debate should more be around how do we make the system they've created work, and how do we integrate that into our already existing healthcare systems. That's where I think the debate should be.
That's
so,
right.
for example, the new code that they've brought out, we are told that there are 200 prank calls per day. How do we reduce that? How are we measuring access? So people who are in places where there's no reception, how do they get the ambulance? How will these new ambulances reduce mortality? Do you get my point?
Yeah.
How can people in communities that are hard to reach also get these ambulances? How do they manage it so that when there's an emergency in a region, we can deploy other ambulances quicker? So we scrutinize the mobile and digital system they've put in place. That's where the debate should be. But as usual, NDC, MPP, Danado has brought 307 ambulances. He needs 4 more years. NDC, oh, Mahama, he did this. Mahama. You see, we are pathetic. You see, we allow people who have whatever interest in political activity to dictate a very important thing like healthcare conversation. Go to Facebook. People are shouting, why are you launching ambulance? Is that a great achievement? We have built hospitals. We are bringing ambulance. Meanwhile, this person, they will get an emergency. Then they'll be calling you. Do you know somebody at 37 to help me? You see, we don't like ourselves. We are not thinking about outcomes. We are in an output-driven political economy. That's why we like procuring things. How many women who are pregnant die from childbirth complications because they don't have access to emergency care? And how would that number reduce? That should be our focus. Not whether I provided 30 ambulances, provided 20 ambulances. If you give me 30,000 ambulances and women are still dying because they don't have access to...
There's no point.
Do you understand me? So the conversation is warped, is polluted politically. If you want to discuss it, when you say something, one party will cut it and go and say, Bernard support us, he doesn't support us. You see, if the general public doesn't move the debate forward to the outcomes, and it's always about input. Input is somebody's way of getting money. Okay, let's move the debate to what is the length of time. Vivian, I have friends who say they won't come to Ghana again because they were in the UK when at midnight their child had a convulsion. They called 911 and in 5 minutes there was an ambulance in front of their house, sent the child to hospital and saved the person. You live at Agbogba somewhere. Call the number and see how long you take them to get there. And they'll even tell there's no bed in the hospital. We had a whole program about no bed syndrome. We've got ambulances, and the debate is now still on NDC versus MPP. Are we serious? No, do we really want to help our citizens, or we are just really who wins elections? What is wrong with us? So I really don't want to even debate.
No.
And Lecha has said this, Mahama has said this, Akufo-Addo has said this, and so what? If you have an emergency tomorrow night, will the system work?
Will it work?
Think about that and
stop
this unnecessary, useless political argument about which party is doing what. It's as if politics is the only food we eat in Ghana. It's nauseating. And I'm not interested in it.
You shouldn't.
Honestly, I'm not.
so let's look at the system that has been introduced around this ambulance service. First of all, let's look at the efficiency of the system we've built. Selorm.
Yes, very important points. I think by our standard, this is a great achievement. I think it's almost unprecedented to have 307 ambulances come into the country almost around the same time and to be distributed across the country, every constituency getting one. You know, I think it's great by our standards. It's good that, again, a system is being, and efforts are being made to build a system around this whole thing so that, you know, it can work properly. The number 112, when you call it now, we know that they've tried to integrate the various emergency services, so police, fire service, ambulance, etc. So when you call, like it is elsewhere, when you call, somebody picks the phone and asks you which of the bodies do you want to speak to. You say it, and then they connect you to it. And, I mean, it works that way in other places, and I think that's the same thinking that went into this. So it's a great thing. So like Bernard said, the conversation really should be about making the system better, because now it is there. So we need to move on from there. I mean, the jamborees, the partying, etc. I think we should be moving on from there now and seeing how we can make the systems work better. So now we used to have about 55 ambulances. We've added 307 to it, total of about 362 now. you know, we are still way behind.
Still not
when you look at the WHO ratio. Before, it was 1:520,000 people. So one ambulance was taking care of about 520,000 people in Ghana. With this 307 added, now we have about 1 to 80,000 or so, which is okay. We are still not at the 1:25,000 people, which is what the WHO recommends. I think if every year or maybe every few years we do a thing like this, it may not be the same number, but we add to the tally, I think we will get there and even get better. But, you know, having said that, the real issues are what structures have we put in place to ensure that these systems and these ambulances work better. It is not just the ambulances. There's a system around which the ambulances work. So you have the National Ambulance Service, which is a body on its own, just like the Ghana Health Service, just like the National Health Insurance Authority, just like the other bodies are. But my concern is how decentralized is the National Ambulance Service? Do we have the National Ambulance Service in all districts, or in this case, in all constituencies? They say they have service points. So maybe the ambulance will be parked under a shed somewhere, maybe called the service station, so that when the calls come, I want to be interested in how they'll be able to quickly, because you call the 112, maybe that'll be a central command center. How would they quickly inform the particular constituency or district that this person at this place
within what period are you connected to?
So these are things that we'll get to know with time. But my concern is how decentralized is the National Ambulance Service? What capacity do they have? The staff strength? Who are they? They say they train some people. I'm not sure these are professional paramedics. These are people that were drafted, were called, and then given some 6 weeks training or 4 weeks training, etc. Over time, these people must receive refresher courses. Have we put in place systems to ensure that the whole Ghana, we just have one emergency or paramedic training center around the Ashanti region in Kenkensu or so? That is where we have that center. What programs are in place to ensure what we call continuous professional development? We need that. And these guys are being deployed to rural areas or to communities. How sure are we that they will remain there and not be enticed by something else? They will leave their job and go and do some other job to earn them more money. Do we have a contingency plan? Do we have enough people to push to those areas when these people leave? I think these are issues we should really be looking at. Have we also developed a preventive maintenance program or protocol? Our roads are not good. These ambulances, from the beginning, they'll be happy traveling with a lot of speed, bad roads. In a few months' time, we will start having these ambulances parked at fitting shops and so many other places.
Communities, workers.
Exactly, I'm coming there. So the maintenance, the preventive maintenance protocol, how often would they have to be maintained or go to the maintenance shop? Would they have to get spoiled before they are taken to the maintenance shop, or it will be periodic and it will be... I mean, we need to understand that.
Some of the questions you're asking, to be very frank, if you listen to Professor Zakaria,
he answered all
Umaru Sanda interviewed him on point blank. Look, on paper, there is a system. They trained people. They have over 100 centers. They are expanding. They've trained drivers. The only thing we need to do is to see if the system is working. You can have the best laid plans. If you listen to Professor Zakaria in terms of the preparations they've made, this is being run by the National Ambulance Service. It's not being run by any district chief executive per se. This is what he said. So if he's to be believed, they've thought through this thing. They've linked it to an emergency system. They've created a new number. On paper, it's great. I think we'll probably give it a month. And then they should come and tell us what works, what doesn't work. How can the media help? Because I think for something as important as ambulances, we can't just leave it to the ambulance service without the media playing a role. For example, we need to educate people on prank calls. That's right. We need to let people understand why they have to pay if it's not an emergency for the system to run. A lot of people are complaining that why is the National Ambulance Service saying that if you are
not an emergency, you have to pay for it.
People need to understand how these systems work. And I think we need more information. And I commend Professor Zakaria. They've been very forthright. When we went for the launch, we did a whole CNR for 30 minutes from the launch ceremony. I think being a public health intervention, when people are informed about how the system works and they can give good feedback, I think we should be optimistic that it will work. Having said this, we need to not forget that we have need for medical centers to be finished. Because if you have ambulances in every district, and we did a project where hospitals worth over $1 billion for over 9 years have been abandoned, you can't say that you've tied your loose ends well. So we want to urge this government to also, in addition to the ambulances, wrap up the hospitals that have been left unfinished, and the ones that have been finished are not being operational. Because the ambulances are our ambulances are not coming to treat you where you are. They pick you and send you to the facility. Yeah. Professor Zachariah explained this. So in certain countries, an ambulance can come to you and it has everything. But in our country, the ambulance picks you up and stabilizes you and sends you to the hospital. Yeah. So the hospital is not finished, the process is not done. So I think, as Christ says, this you should have done without leaving the others undone. It's a great initiative. We applaud the government for doing it. But I think they should hasten the process of finishing the abandoned hospitals so that the system will work better.
Okay. Yeah, so the other point I want to add to this is it has to do with the financing. How do we fund the National Ambulance Service? I think, given all that we have seen, we should begin a conversation on a more dedicated or a more dedicated funding source like we have for maybe the NHIS or the GET Fund. I'm not suggesting that we introduce a tax system. But apart from budgetary allocation, we know what happens. They may give you some money today, tomorrow they may not. Or they may allocate some money to you, but that money may never get to you. We need to have a proper or a dedicated funding source to this particular thing. So, yes, the ambulance will have to take you to the hospital. But the ambulance needs to be furnished with some, medical necessaries. So at least you can be stabilized. A year or so ago, I listened to a lady on Bernard's show, a nurse who called into the program, and she was so frustrated because she said, it's common oxygen. The ambulance which carried a pregnant woman from her facility to a bigger facility did not have it. And they ended up losing the woman. So this is an unavoidable death. We need to have a proper funding system so that they won't tell you that we don't have food or so we are not moving. Or maybe the ambulances, they can carry you, but it doesn't have what it takes to stabilize before you get to the health facility. I think once we have a proper hold on these things, I think we will do well. Certainly, it is a good program. Government must be commended, and then more as well is required.
Okay. We'll stay with health, and then we'll look quickly at the coronavirus. We should be worried as a country because the majority of our businesses go to China every now and then. They've been told to hold on with travels because of what is happening, and most of them have come out to say they're actually going to wait because it's in their own interest. But as a country, since this outbreak, do you guys think we've been able to deal with it properly as a country?
Selorm is the health guy here, but let me just say quickly that for me, if you listen to what we've been told by the Ghana Health Service, if you listen to some of the directives, for example, hospitals have been designated as coronavirus centers. Clearly, there's an awareness among officialdom about how serious this is, which is very good. I am only heartened by the fact that in the midst of a massive Ebola outbreak in Africa, for some reason, the system we put in place ensured that we didn't get even one recorded case of Ebola virus here. So for that, I feel if we would adhere to the public health directives that the Ghana Health Service has put out, we will look out for the signs and symptoms, and the media will play the role of educating people about what to look out for and how to report quickly. I think we will be in a safe space. Because don't forget that the Chinese, even though they are more advanced than we are, they have massive population. So they are having to grapple with this on a scale that is unfathomable for any African country. So I'm just saying that let's keep telling people what the symptoms are, how it presents. Let's remind them of what the protocols are and what needs to be done. And I think that will be fine. Because for now, the public health aspect of our work, because these things, the thing about coronavirus is that it can be transmitted without presenting fully. It's not like certain things that you see that you have it, and then you can be quarantined. So before you quarantine the person, it's already transmitted to 2 or 3 people. And science is far behind this. And the challenge with the issue of even a vaccine is, by the time you even invest money in a vaccine, just like the SARS, it may just find a way of disappearing. So it's something we are still studying. So I think the announcement and the public health aspects of this are very critical. And I think that if we, the media, will help, as will the other health points, be more alert and observant and adhere to the rules that they've put out, I think we should be fine. Yeah.
The health guy.
So the coronavirus, I mean, SARS is a form of the coronavirus, and we saw that in the early 2000s, where about 700 people died in the same China, Hong Kong area. I think the thing about viral diseases is they are very difficult to be treated or dealt with. So we saw that in Ebola as well, and this is what we have now is a certain type of coronavirus, and so we see the havoc it's threatening, and about 133 people also have died in China, and I hear there are 4 cases reported in Germany and about 7 cases in Australia. Did I even read that Cote d'Ivoire is
yes,
recorded a case? So it's spreading, but we hope that the public health systems that the world is putting in place will help contain this quicker, so that we don't have an Ebola situation on our hands. Also, Ghana, during the Ebola time, of course, we designated the Tema General Hospital and a few other places as centers. We've done the same thing now. Maybe we've done it faster because maybe the infrastructure and the plan for dealing with such emergencies is already there. So we just activated it. So the Ridge Hospital or the Greater Accra Regional Hospital and the Tema General Hospital are now designated centers. And fortunately, we have a Noguchi Center that we understand is equipped and capable of, testing to confirm if or to confirm or not if a particular presentation is coronavirus. So in public health education or health promotion is important. There is some of that ongoing, but how has it percolated down to the people in the rural areas, in the communities? It is not only from the airports that we have people coming from various places. We have a case in Cote d'Ivoire. I don't know how widespread that's going to get. I don't know how many people that person might have contacted. And between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, it's just an imaginary line, a border. We have relatives in Cote d'Ivoire. How well have we educated, or how well are we educating people in the rural areas? We have the CHIPS compounds. That is their job. It's a community health planning services. Their job is to be getting into the communities and educating the people. I hope the Ghana Health Service by now is equip them with enough information and will ask them to place special emphasis on this coronavirus thing, go into the communities and explain to people what the symptoms are and what they should look out for and what they should do should they see people like that. It is important. So that, we wouldn't have, the people infecting a lot of people before we get to see. Yeah. And I hope our system too is ready to track people. I think Nigeria did well in the Ebola time because the only case also which came that they were able to track and trace places the person has been and quarantine the people who the person came into contact with. So fortunately, it did not spread in our country. And I hope we've taken a leaf or two from that book and we are readying our systems to be able to deal with that.
Okay. Yes. Okay, let me take a few messages, then we'll take a break and then we'll wrap up on our last topic. This is from Ni. He says, my problem is the maintenance culture in this country. In a year's time, a lot of these cars will be parked, like our former president said. Focus should rather be on the completion of hospitals because the ambulance will carry the patient to the hospital. You see from Tamale says, I commend the government for the efforts made in providing these ambulances, but they have been over-politicized, so we have lost interest, and he goes on and on. He wants, they should rather post the nurses who are sitting at home since completion in 2017 and 18. If not, the ambulances will carry the patients to the hospitals and they'll still die because of inadequate nurses and doctors. Then Prince Amos says government should award all the broken down ambulances as contracts to Neoplan Ghana for them to work. This will complement the services that will be rendered by the new ones. Selassie from Amasaman says, I think I'll just skip this one. Another from somebody from Ketusal, Blessed from Ketusal says, please, I would like to know what happens to our new national ID since most of us used voters' ID. I think you're talking about something else. Nee from Bajona says, good evening, Citi. The Neoplan story is the same as that of the Kumasi shoe factory. Much as I sympathize with them, I would want to know if they have a marketing department that is on top of the trade. And also, they should look within their respective organizations why they are not competitive. Unfortunately, people are being paid for not delivering. This one is from Hoho. It says, hundreds of Chinese left Africa for China to celebrate their annual festival. Now, Chinese are already infected with the coronavirus. The AU and national government should take serious precautionary and preventive actions before we have an epidemic in Africa. And the final one from Shasha says, how can you purchase an ambulance for a constituency without completing left hospitals and chip zones under the previous government? Okay, so we'll take a quick one. When we come back, we'll wrap up with the IPAC meeting. Stay with us. So yeah, welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. I'm here with Bernard Avle and Selorm Adonoo. We'll wrap up on the show and do that with the IPAC meeting. There was a meeting this afternoon, Thursday. Both sides, those for the new register and those against, presented their issues to the IMMINENT Advisory Committee, taking both sides their notes, and they're supposed to advise on the way forward. Guys, your quick thoughts on this?
Well, the meeting was inconclusive.
Yes.
Both sides said to us that the meeting was inconclusive and that the committee would recommend based on presentations. My question is, did we have to wait for a committee of eminent persons to tell us that we have to sit in a room and talk? You know, I think the EC brought some of this upon itself because you have an IPAC mechanism that works. You are the referee in a game between political parties. Yes, you have the power to determine the rules. But consensus is the best way to deal with these issues. Nobody is saying you don't have a right to do what you are doing. Yeah. They are saying the arguments you are giving and the time that you are hoping to achieve this, it will put all of us in trouble. Hold a meeting. Explain your side. Listen to everybody. And try and convince people. Do press conference. NDC does demonstration. MPP does interview. Up and down. Committee of eminent persons now comes in. Even when they came in, you already announced the date you want to start the registration. I think that's not the best way to go, honestly. Look, we are adults. We've learned how to do elections since 92. And we've done it. There have been tension, but we've gone through. I think the EC can help de-escalate these tensions by continuing in this format. Get the group to... Look, once you sit in the same room and you talk, you will resolve the matter. Instead of this brinkmanship where everybody's doing interviews separately, everybody's saying different things, raising the temperature of the country politically, and everybody's on edge. I pray that after the decision taken by the eminent committee, they will also agree that going forward, this will be the vehicle for resolving all issues. So we can have our peace and live our lives. That's what I have to say.
Selorm.
I think the meeting, when parties are disputing and you want to call them into a meeting, it's always difficult if they've made up their minds. They have entrenched positions. So the EC, for example, says, the meeting they call the meeting before this one. The meeting we are calling is not to decide whether we will do it or not. We will do it. We are just going to tell them that this is how we are going to do it and everything. And indeed, the date for the registration was already out. And so they've begun training their people, doing all those things. NDC also, we're told that the committee of eminent persons also had called the resistance group and told them to hold fire till they did this. And before they realized, the EC had announced the date. And so now they have to suspend the suspension of their protest. And now they got back onto the streets, etc. I think the tension is escalating. And it is not good for us. The hard lineup position of the EC that yes, they are independent, blah, blah, blah. Yes, that's good. The Constitution gives you that independence, etc. But that independence is not in isolation. You are in the midst of people. And what is your objective? You are working for the people. And you are working to ensure that we have a fairer system, we have a better system. So when you are taking a decision and there is a lot of talk around it, I'm not saying you stop it, but be a bit more open and be seen to be open. Yeah. Listen to people and in the end, come up with what you want to do. But right from the onset, if you pitch yourself against others, I don't think it's a good thing to do, because you would have set yourself against the people even in the first place. I think the EC didn't handle this well. There were times that even the political parties were asking the EC to call an IPAC meeting. And I don't know what really goes into an IPAC meeting, apart from calling the political party representatives and you EC moderating or sitting amongst them to talk. They were calling for IPAC meeting to discuss this. You will not call IPAC meetings. You only call a meeting and then you were demonstrating to them what you wanted to do. I think the EC is missed the point on this. And I only hope that they are able to salvage something from this. Now, the mass actions will continue according to the resistance groups. Now we hear that on the 4th February also, they are going to occupy the EC. I mean, I don't know how that's going to look like, because the state is going to descend on heavily on that day, because the EC is the EC. The state will want to protect the EC and the assets and everything. And we're only praying that the situation does not degenerate. And if anything happens, I'll place it squarely at the doorstep of the EC, because they failed to provide leadership in this case. You may want to do it, but the way or the approach you employ in communicating your point and your intentions, very, very important. Where EC is in a meeting with people and it's almost like a banter, I think was so unfortunate. And this is the result we are seeing.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of What the Papers Are Saying. I had Bernard Avle, the host of the Citi Breakfast Show. He's also the general manager for Citi TV and Citi FM. I also had with me Selorm Adonoo. He's the head of features and articles here at Citi FM and Citi TV. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. Thank you so much for joining us. And keep watching Citi TV. Goodbye.